So we've done all of this work for client-side validation, but what happens if there's a server error that's thrown from the server saying something, even though it's valid on the client side, it's not valid on the server? So say an email address is already taken. For one example, there's a variety of other things that could happen. How do we actually manage that? Well, first off, let's go ahead and kind of simulate a server call. So what we've got here is our onSubmit. We do a set timeout, and we're just kind of doing this stuff. Let's create a new function, and I'm just going to call this sign up to kind of simulate a server call. So what I'm going to do is actually return a new promise. Promise takes resolve and reject as arguments. And we'll add a set timeout in here. This is just kind of like this 1000, basically simulating server latency. That's going to take a function. We'll make it take 1000 seconds. And basically, we'll resolve true here. Okay, so what about an error case? Well, we can say, we'll pass an email to sign up. And we can say if email is equal to a@a.com, we can reject this with a new error, and we'll say you playing with that fake email address. All right, so that's just kind of simulating a server error on an email address, basically saying that's not a real email address, you're lying to us. Okay, so let's use this. So we know this is going to return a promise. So what we can do here, we'll update our onSubmit. We can say sign up. We'll go ahead and pass an email. That's going to be on values.email. We can then go ahead and say .then, all right, and that's going to be a function. And basically, then is going to represent our success case. So if it's not a@a.com in our example, that's our success case. We can go ahead and delete this. And then if we've got an error message, what do we do? Well, we can access that by using .catch, and we can say error. And then with that error message, so in this case, it's a JavaScript error. So our message that we passed here will show up on error.message. We can actually go ahead and set a specific field error here. So we can say actions.setFieldError, just like we did previously with our set field value. We can say set field error, which I need to actually type correctly. And then what I like to do is just call this kind of like a general error. I just give it a general key that's not within our initial values or within the values we're tracking. And then I'll go ahead and give it whatever that message should be. So it's error.message. And that should be good. Now, the final thing we want to do, we still want to basically allow the user to fix their error and resubmit it. So what I'm going to do is call .finally on this promise chain. Because this is going to happen whether it succeeds or it fails, we're going to go ahead and once again say actions.setSubmitting to false once again. So if I save this, and then I go through, fill this out. Actually, I need to make sure this isn't in uppercase. a@a.com, ASDF, agree to terms, submit. And it's just hanging there because I didn't spell finally right. .finally. So let's try this once again. a@a.com, password, agree to terms, submit. Okay, we didn't get our alert, which means we didn't get our success. Now, what do we do with this general error? Well, we can go down here. Basically, what I'll do is wrap this button or do something along this line. Again, I'll use react.fragment. And I can just say text, we'll set style, color is red. And then we can go ahead, access Formik props, .errors.general, all right, because that's where we're storing that error message. So if I go through, we're getting our normal validation in all of our normal places. And if I set this to a@a.com, which looks like a valid email address, I'll set my password, make sure my passwords match, I'll agree to the terms, submit it, and we get our error message from our server. We're displaying it in our form. It's not related to a specific field, so we're just kind of displaying it along with the button. Now we can go ahead and say b@a.com, submit that. You can see our error message has gone away. I'll submit it, and we get our success message. So that's kind of how we can go ahead and handle the any server errors. Basically just create a new error field, in this case general, call it whatever you want. If you have a way of differentiating errors on the server, you can go ahead and basically parse that inside of your catch to set the appropriate field. And if you know specifically it's the email address that's throwing an error, and that's on the error message, you could set the field error for our email field instead, and it'll show up in the appropriate spot, and then just use general as a kind of like a fallback for anything you're not able to definitively parse. And that's basically how we can go ahead and handle those server errors that users will inevitably get.